estar? Ok, bien. Hola Jean, hola Jean, hola
Hola,
Kyoko. Hola, hola a todos. Bien, bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Welcome. Buenos días, buenos días. Feliz lunes. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Um, in the chat box already, I have a link. I had told people earlier we weren't on recording yet, but the dictionary references there, and you'll see why. You may want to pull that up in a second window on your screen, but it looks like this screen that I'm sharing, wordreference.com. And I'm going to show you an example because I'm going to ask folks to maybe talk about a hobby or something, and you may say, I need to look up one quick word. So let's say my quick word, and I'm going to enlarge this a little bit so it's easier to see on your share screen. Let's say I want to put in the title sewing. I want to know how to say sewing, and I want to talk about the activity because I want to talk about a hobby. You see in yellow, it says hobby activity. The great thing about this for today and any other day is that it gives you not only definitions of dictionary would give you, but uses of a word. And I am going to a little bit later on use this word as the hobby. And that hobby word can go for two things. It can be used as coser or costura. I'm going to pick the costura one. And they put my name in there in the example. Nunca he visto esto. I have never seen this. A Marilyn, sí. Le encanta la costura, que sí es pura verdad. That is like really the truth. Le encanta la costura, meaning I like that activity. Wow, how did they get me in there? That has never happened in about 5 years of looking at that. They never used my name. Okay. A ver. Bien. So you see how that works. Is a great tool. You may want to, if you don't know how to talk about or name or use the word for your hobby, you may want to quickly look that up. Hola, Sandy. Bien. And we have a fair number of new people in here today, both permanent and maybe just visiting to get a feel for what's going on. That is great. Uh, hoy vamos a practicar esta clase, this class, and we're going to do this lesson soon. Sí, Gina está sonriendo. Yeah, she is smiling. We will do that. We will not do it today because we need some context build up to do it, but la semana que viene, next week, yeah? So, esta lección, this lesson, esta clase, this class. En esta clase vamos a hablar y hablar en un nivel fácil, at an easy level, ¿sí? Es una clase fácil, una clase de hablar, es una clase para cometer errores sin vergüenza. It is a class to make mistakes with no embarrassment. Yay! Did you ever have a high school teacher who did that for you, or did
no,
they wag the finger, man?
wag the
Yeah.
finger.
Okay. Um, there is no way to practice any language without making mistakes, and you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes because your 18-month-old or 2-year-old kid or grandkid or niece or nephew uh, makes all kinds of mistakes and they're not embarrassed about it. And if you make them feel embarrassed about it, shame, stop doing that because it'll mess them up. It'll make them feel like, oh my God. Yeah. So if you say something and I repeat back your idea, but with a change, okay, that means that maybe it's a change you should incorporate. And you can always, yeah. So never be afraid to make mistakes. Uh, um, Cometer errores es normal. Making mistakes
It's
is
normal.
normal, yeah? And notice the way we say make mistakes is not hacer errores, make. We don't use the make verb. We use cometer errores. You commit errors. Wow, that makes it sound like a sin, doesn't it? But it's not. No lo es. Ok, a ver. Bien. Vamos a practicar en un nivel muy fácil. Vamos a practicar con a veces cosas fáciles, a veces cosas difíciles. Sometimes we will practice with some hard stuff here and there, some easy stuff. Today, because it's the first starting session, we have lots and lots of easy stuff. It's an introduction day. And it is always, by the way, okay, a thing we always do with this class is to review things that you have heard before, but it needs reinforcement. All right. So, how to use verbs, how to conjugate verbs needs a lot of reinforcement. We need to hear examples and practice examples over and over. And this is a venue to do that. So today we're going to review, we've got a big topic. We're going to review a lot to prep for next week so that you can incorporate a thing that might be new for some of you or something you haven't used in a long time for others of you. And we'll practice it a lot so we can incorporate it more next week. Okay, bien. A ver, bueno, vamos a empezar. We're going to begin y voy a compartirles con ustedes esto. I'm going to share this with you. Presentaciones. That means introductions. Introductions, yeah? Presentaciones. I want you to, and if you don't feel comfortable doing this, then just don't volunteer, and that's okay too, because depending on where you are, maybe you won't feel comfortable to do this today, but we do want to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves. Presentaciones. Tell the group about yourself. And I will model by giving you some examples, right? What your name is. There are 3 different ways you might do that. What your name is. Okay. Where you are from. You may choose to give a country, a state, or a city. See? So for these 2, soy with your name, or me llamo with your name, or mi nombre es with your name. That works great. Where you're from, soy de. And then you name a place. Soy de. I am from, literally, right? And then the third thing I want you to do, and here is where that word reference link, you can see in the chat box. If you turn on the chat box, if you click on that, that'll bring up a second screen. And yeah, maybe you want to look something up. You want to talk about the last thing I want you to tell, if you can, and if you can't, leave this out, but if you can, tell something about yourself, what you like to do, what you do for work, what your hobby is, anything. Wide open, okay? And the word that is often used for hobby is hobby. Hobby. Wow, it's a borrowed word. Technically, there's a better word for that, but a lot of people don't use the better word because this has kind of been grabbed in from English. Some people use pasatiempos, spend time. But a lot of people have flipped over into borrowing that word from English, hobby. Something you like to do. Soy maestra. Mis hobbies son cocinar, coser, y andar en bici. My hobbies are cooking, sewing, and riding a bike. Okay. You may want to talk about if you've got a collection of something that's kind of fun or weird, something that somebody else doesn't have. Tengo una colección grande de herramientas de costura. I have a huge collection of sewing tools. Yeah. Your strap on the backpack broke? La puedo arreglar. I can fix that. Your Velcro on that sandal like doesn't do the grabbies anymore.
I can fix that.
Sí, las puedo arreglar. I can fix that. You got a hole in an embarrassing place? Sí, sí, lo puedo arreglar. I can fix that. Ok. Porque tengo herramientas de costura. Porque tengo herramientas de costura. I've got all kinds of oddball sewing tools. You would look at it and say, ¿Qué es eso? What is that? You would look at it, you wouldn't even know what it is. I got all kinds of weird stuff. Okay, so I'm going to model what I want you to do. Bueno, primero, me llamo Marilyn, soy Marilyn. Soy de Michigan originalmente, pero vivía en Chicago y soy de Fountain Hills, Arizona. Uy, hace como más de 30 años, muchos años. Bien. Bueno, y claro, mi hobby es la costura, sewing y montar en bicicleta en el desierto. Y soy maestra de español. Bien. Ok. Socias, your ideas, open it up. ¿Quién quiere empezar? Who wants to start? ¿Quién quiere empezar? ¿Quién quiere empezar? Who wants to begin? Bien, bueno, Janice.
Me llamo Janice, soy de Texas, soy hobbies, caminata. Bien.
La última parte, last part again, otra vez.
I think it was caminata, walking.
Ah, okay. Let me give you a new word to put in here
Okay.
because you don't want to say I am walking because you're not that activity. That's not who you are. Here's what we're going to do instead. Soy aficionada. Perdón. That means a fan. Soy aficionada de caminatas. I'm a fan of hikes. Or, oh, because often there's more than one way to say something. Quite often. Soy aficionada de caminar.
Bien.
Bien. Ok. Bien.
Bien.
Excelente. Excelente.
Gracias.
Bueno, Janice, ¿de qué ciudad en Texas? ¿De qué ciudad en Texas
Sí.
eres?
Arizona.
Ok, estás
Sí.
en Arizona
Sí.
ahora, pero
Sí.
originalmente eres de Arizona.
Sí.
Oh,
Sí.
ok, no
Yeah.
de Texas. Bien, bien, gracias. Excelente, excelente. ¿Quién más? Sí, la segunda persona, segunda persona. ¿Quién? Julie.
Me llamo Julie. Originalmente soy de Wisconsin. Mi hobby es bailar en línea. Me gusta mucho viajar.
¿Te gusta viajar? Excelente. Sí. Julie, ¿cuál es el último lugar donde viajaste? The last place you traveled.
China.
Ok, bien, gracias. Bueno, muy bien. Jean, la tercera parte.
Yep. Me llamo Jean, soy de Illinois originalmente, pero yo vivo en Phoenix para 7 años.
Sí, bien.
Yep. Soy una maestra a la Universidad de Grand Canyon University.
De Grand Canyon.
Sí.
¿Qué materia enseñas en Grand Canyon?
Anatomía y fisiología.
¡Wow!
Yeah. Para, ¿cómo se dice nurses? I teach in the nursing program.
Enfermeras.
That's a new one for me. I hadn't learned that. Okay. Let's see. Mis hobbies son leer y jugar tenis.
Bien, bien. Y debo decir enfermeros, porque es posible que los hombres y las mujeres,
Sí.
sí, están en clases para hacerse enfermeros. Sí, bien, bien, excelente. Wow, Gina es científica. Wow.
Sí.
Ok,
Sí.
muy bien, muy bien. Ok, ¿quién más? Who else?
I'll go.
Bien, fantástico.
Me llamo Rebecca, soy de Phoenix. Soy una dietinista en el hospital. Me gusta montar en bici y jugar con mi hija.
Excelente. Rebeca, cuando vas en bicicleta, ¿sí? Cuando montas tú en bicicleta, bueno, ¿montas en la calle o en los senderos en el desierto?
Ah, calle,
En las calles.
sí.
Bien, vale. Bueno, ah, yo monto en las calles un poco porque tengo miedo a los carros, because I'm always scared of the cars. Guy, sí, bien. Las piedras no, rocks no. I could hit a rock. No tengo miedo, pero, not scared, pero tengo miedo de los carros, a los carros. Bien. Bueno, alguien más, somebody else.
I'll
Alguien.
try.
Bien.
Okay. Mi nombre es Karen. Soy de Pennsylvania. Mi hobby es cuidando de un jardín.
Trabajando en el jardín. Sí, trabajar en el jardín, sí. Bueno, excelente.
Vegetables or
Oh,
O fruta.
vegetales o flores.
Vegetales.
Vegetales.
great.
Vegetales es difícil. Es difícil cultivar vegetales para, para cultivar in order to grow. And when we grow plant items, we don't call it the verb crecer, grow. We call it the cultivar, grow. Yeah. Para cultivar vegetales tienes talento. Tienes talento. You have to have talent, ¿sí? Hay que tener talento.
Yes.
Ella es muy modesta. She's very modest person, sí. Bien. Bueno, Marcos, ¿quieres decirnos algo?
Hola, soy Mark, pero a Marilyn le gusta, me llama Marco. ¿Sí?
Sí.
Sí. Soy originalmente de Brooklyn, Nueva York, pero vivía en Houston, Texas, durante 40 años,
Muchos años.
muchos años. Soy jubilado y me gusta ir a los partidos de béisbol por los D-backs.
Bien. Excelente.
Okay.
Excelente.
Sam,
Sam, bien.
okay. Mi nombre es Sabatino, también conocido como Sam. Soy originaria de Brooklyn, Nueva York, just like Mark, and vivido en Scottsdale, Arizona, durante los últimos 21 años.
Wow.
That's great.
And sigo yo mi interés en todos los deportes excepto el hockey sobre hielo.
Ah,
I don't like hockey.
no eres aficionado a hockey. Ah,
Yeah.
bien. Ok. A ver. Sí. Ah, el hockey siempre es muy popular en el estado donde crecí. Sí, en Michigan sí el hockey es muy
Mm.
popular.
Nice
Pero aquí todo el mundo no sigue el hockey necesariamente. Bien. ¿Alguien más? Anybody else who wants to add something in if you feel comfortable?
I can.
Bien.
Danita? Oh,
Sí, sí. Sí,
okay.
Nanita.
Mi nombre es Danita, soy de Israel, pero nací en Sudáfrica. Me gusta ayudar a la persona a navegar por el sistema médico. Take them to medical, yeah.
Bien. Excelente.
Me gusta escuchar disco antiguos, old records, like the vinyl records. I don't know how you say that.
Tienes tocador de discos. You have a record player.
Oh, yeah.
Todavía tienes. Wow. Creo que, ¿dónde está? Where is it? No sé. I don't know. Hay en alguna parte de la casa hay un tocador de discos, pero sí, hoy en día todo el mundo no tiene discos, pero
Oh, no.
en algún sentido los discos tienen un sonido mejor, ¿bien? ¿Sí? Better sound, un
Yeah.
mejor sonido en los discos. Sí, pero hay que tener el equipo. You have to have the equipment. Sí, hoy en día es difícil. Es difícil. Bien, excelente. A ver, ¿alguien más? Anybody else who wants to add something in? ¿Alguien más? Cindy.
I'll give it a try. Soy Cindy, soy de Michigan y también viví en Atlanta por muchos años. Soy jubilada de azafata o asistente de vuelo. Mi esposo y yo viajamos mucho y pasamos tiempo, ayudamos inmigrantes y jugamos pickleball.
Sí, un deporte muy popular, muy popular. En mi pueblo están construyendo más canchas, canchas donde se juega, where you play it. Sí, las canchas.
Court.
¿Cómo se dice? Court.
Courts.
Gracias. Sí, me acuerdo de la palabra en español, pero en inglés no tanto. And sometimes in English, I get the word. Sí, están construyendo, están construyendo más canchas de pickleball. Muy cerca de mi casa. A veces mi esposo y yo vemos, sí, a muchas personas jugando a pickleball y es interesante, es muy interesante, ¿sí? Es un poquito ruidoso, it's a little loud, es un poquito ruidoso, it's a little noisy, ¿sí? Es un deporte ruidoso, it's a noisy.
Es verdad.
Yeah, sí, bien, excelente. Bien, ¿alguien más? Anybody else got something they want to add in for fun?
Okay, who's next?
Bien.
Okay, mi nombre es Lisa. Soy de Fairbanks, Alaska, Arkansas, Phoenix, Arizona.
Bien.
Ah, caminar, soy aficionado.
Aficionada. Mhm.
Aficionada. That's all I can think of.
Ok, está bien. Sí, y eres aficionada a de caminar. Magnífico, magnífico. Excelente. ¿Alguien más? Anybody else want to add something in last minute? ¿No? Más o menos. Ok, bien. Gracias por participar. Gracias gracias por compartir información de su vida. Thanks for sharing some information about your life. We're going to do a mini lesson today that kind of goes back to something simple, but it requires us to combine some things. So in order to do that, and something that actually I'm going to want you to do next week, to incorporate, to build into a little something we'll use for conversation next week. So this is going to be our mini lesson for the day. And it goes back to a little thing that is talking about the time. Hablar de la hora. Okay. And by the way, there are different words for talking about time in Spanish. So let's back up a little bit. If you want to say, I'm only doing this once, yeah? One time. One time is una vez. Una vez. Be easy. B-E-Z. See? B chica, the little B. Una vez. But if you want to say, I do this for a lot of time during the day, it's not the word vez, B-E-Z. Then it is, por ejemplo, enseño español mucho. I teach Spanish a lot. Sí, mucho. Enseño español por mucho tiempo. Por mucho tiempo, for a long time, like a block of time. Yeah. Then it's not the word vez, then it's the word tiempo. See? Or if you want to ask somebody, how long do you walk every morning? ¿Cuánto tiempo caminas cada mañana? ¿Cuánto tiempo? How much time? ¿Cuánto tiempo caminas? How much time do you walk? All right, because we kind of want to know that block, that number of minutes. But then if we want to talk about at what time, we don't use the word vez, be easy. We don't use the word tiempo, time. We use the word hora, hora, H-O-R-A, hora. La hora is the time. See? And there are different ways we have to combine little tiny structures, little short words for the most part to talk about time. So the most recognizable block that we need to put together these little word structures are the number part. Okay, so that is something we're going to review today, and always feel free to interrupt me when you have a question. So I'm going to show you a little chart. This is an easy peasy chart, and then we'll see how we build it into sentences later on. Un poquito más tarde, ¿sí? What's the time? What's the time? So we're going to see our little structures. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? ¿Qué hora es? What hour is it? That's how we ask for the time. See? You may also hear this, by the way, para que sepan, just so you guys know, para que sepan. Some people prefer to express this in a plural sense. So here's how it will sound instead of what you see at the top, ¿qué hora es? It may sound like, ¿qué horas son? ¿Qué horas son? What hours are they? And why might you hear two ways? I don't know why. No sé por qué. I don't know why. But some people prefer to ask that as the plural. And it might be, I'm guessing, it might be because The only time we use a singular idea with telling time is the 1 o'clock hour. See, es la una, it's 1 o'clock. And it's much more usual to talk about hours as more than 1 hour, because that's what we mostly have on the clock, right? So you may hear it as que horas son, para que sepan, just so you know. Okay, so let's take a look at our basic structures. Son las 4, 4 o'clock. Son las 4:05. Oh, we're adding on minutes to the time. 4:05, 5 minutes after 4. Son las 4:10. Son las 4:15. Son las 4:20. Son las 4:25. Son las 4:30. Oh, look at that media. Media is right in the middle. Media. It's the half-hour time. It divides the clock in half. That's why they often say media. And son las 5:25. Okay, son las 5:20, son las 5:15. So we're going to look at why we do this, but I want you to notice something very easy peasy to start off. To say what the time is, what the actual current time is, we always start off with son las, son las, son las. Yeah, son. Son is that plural form of ser. Ser means to be. It's like saying in English, it's, yeah? Son, because it's more than 1 hour for most of those hours of the day, yeah? And the las stands in for the idea of horas being a feminine and singular thing. So the vast majority of the time we're talking about telling the time, it'll start off with son las, son las. Okay, the only time that's going to change will be for the 1 o'clock hour. Then it will be es la, es la, es, the singular form of ser, and la to represent that it's only 1 hour if it's 1 o'clock. See? Yeah. So that's our little starter, easy peasy page. Yay. Let's take a look at something else. And you don't have to copy notes furiously because
You'll send that.
yeah, I'll say, yeah, but some people don't know yet. So,
Okay.
For those who don't know yet, don't take copious notes. Watch and listen and be a sponge. See?
Yes.
Yes, esponja, be a sponge. So this tells you a little bit about the different words that you may hear to refer to the actual word time, right? Ves, tiempo, but we're going to look today at and focus today on this hora thing, yeah, the time of day, que hora es. By the way, if you're shocked and time got away from you, you know how it is when you thought it was only 2 o'clock and it's 5? And you go, wow, mira la hora, look at the time, yeah? They never say the word tiempo or ves for that. Mira la hora, look at the hour. Mira la hora. Okay, bien. There we go. Here are our patterns for telling time. Yeah? We use the word son most of the time. We use the word las because it represents that time of horas, hours on the clock, those numbers, right? Then we put in the actual number of the hour of the day, whether it's, something between
Cuatro.
Yeah, 1 and 12, right? And then you might have minutes, right? You might have minutes, okay? So now, here's one other thing that is really important. Here's probably what you'll use more next week. To tell time, it is son las with the hour number and maybe minutes, okay? But to say at a time, and at I'm going to put this in red so that you remember it. To say at a time instead of it's 2 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, it's important to know that instead of son las, we substitute this group of words, a las. A las is like saying at a time. A las, the las represents the idea of horas, numbers on your watch or on a clock, okay? And then again, we'd plug in the number of the hour and maybe minutes. So, son las 5, it's 5 o'clock. Son las 10, it's 10 o'clock. But at 10 o'clock will be a las 10. A las 10, at 10 o'clock. Okay, bien? And I'll probably alter this a little bit so you can see that a little bit more easy. Son las 8:10, 8:10. Son las 8:10. Son las 11:20, 11:20, right? But where we switch to a singular idea is only for this one lonely hour of the day. La una, one. Es la una, right? If you want to say at 1 o'clock, it'll be a la una, a la una. We get rid of the es verb to say at, right? At 1 o'clock has no verb. Not it is 1 o'clock, but at 1 o'clock. So at 1 o'clock will be a la una, see? To add on minutes to that, es la 1:15, es la 1:15, and we're going to have a little video that explains that when we switch out different words. Es la 1:30 or es la 1:30, bien? So we've got all those things. And I want you to notice this. They're going to reinforce this with the video we're going to watch in a bit. For the term a quarter of an hour past or a quarter till a new hour, right? You may hear people use the word 15, which is 15 minutes. That's a quarter of an hour. They may use 15, right? Especially people who really love the digital format. Digital watches have influenced a lot how people express time, as it has here in our culture as well. Instead of the word 15, people may use the word cuarto, which means quarter, except they don't spell it with a Q. Cuarto, not cuatro. Cuatro es esto. Cuatro es esto. 4 is cuatro. It leads off with a T. Cuatro. Cuatro. But cuarto. Cuarto actually has many meanings, but one of the meanings of cuarto is quarter. Okay? So cuarto is used as a substitute for 15 by many people. What's more common?
Whatever.
Yeah, it's like saying how many people say 1:15 instead of 1:15. There's no way to predict. Depends on who you're talking to. Okay, so they are equivalent. So quarter of an hour may use 2 different words, and the idea of half past the hour may get 2 different words, right? People may use 30, literally 30 minutes, and people may have, with the same meaning, use the word media, which means half. Yeah, looks a little bit like medium in English. Media is a feminine form. Notice that. Media is feminine because la hora, the time, is a feminine concept. So that word media, half, goes into that feminine descriptive format. Media. So media and 30, if you're talking about the time, are equivalent, right? So, son las 7:15, 7:15, right? Es la 1:15. Whether they use 15:15 makes no difference. You may hear people saying son las 6:30 or es la 1:30.
Oh, okay.
Both of those are the same. Okay? Bien. So both of those are the same. Oh, one more thing. Una cosita más. One more thing. Whoops. Una cosita más. I took my share off a little too soon, right? When we tell time in Spanish or say at a certain time in Spanish, mentally speaking, people kind of think in terms of dividing the clock in half. It's the first half hour versus the last half hour. Bien. And there may be different ways of talking about that second 30 minutes of a 60-minute cycle. Okay. So, digital clock lovers might choose the same pattern for numbers using 30s, 40s, and 50s. Yeah. Son las 3:40. It's 3:40. I literally had high school kids who could not read an analog clock, and that's been going on for a very long time. That really bothers a lot of people. It used to kind of bother me, but you know what? You got to get over it because, yeah, some people only look at digital clocks and they're like, I don't care what you think about it. This is the way I'm going to say it. And, that happens. And I don't care what your culture is. So rather than demeaning people for not reading an analog clock, we got to accept that it is a digital world. Yeah. So people may express 3:40 as son las 3:40, right? And they may express 1:50 as es la 1:50. Okay. But think in these terms, and you're going to hear this. It is very common when we're talking about time, if you're talking about the last 30 minutes of the 60-minute cycle, anything from 30 on up. It is very common to look at the next hour and then say the word minus and then the minutes. Yeah. Rather than son las 3:40, that E word is and. Instead of an and, you're going to put in the word for minus, which is menos. The minus word. Okay. So you're going to see how we translate the minus word. So son las 4:20. It's 4 o'clock minus 20 is another way of talking about that last 30 minutes on a clock face. Son las 4:20, but then you got to take the hour coming up, not the hour you're in. See? Bien. See? So we might say in English, it's 20 till 4. Yeah?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But 20 till 4 is not 4:20. Yeah. So just like we have different ways of mixing it up in English, we're going to have some different ways of mixing it up in Spanish. And there are even some more ways beyond what you're seeing here. But just know that if we're talking about the last 30 minutes of a 60-minute cycle, you may hear people using the digital idea up here with the bigger number. Son las 3:40 or es la 1:50. Or you may hear people using the next hour coming up minus minutes.
Okay.
Which is son las 4:20 or es la 1:05. Yeah.
55.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people prefer son las 12:55. It's 12:55. And some people say, no, I want to say it as es la 1:05. I want to say it's 1 o'clock minus 5 minutes. Yeah. So just like, like we may say 5 till 1. Yeah. But other people may say, well, no, I'm going to read the digital clock and say 12:55. Well, they do the same thing. So you may hear different things. I'm going to add one little slide onto this just to emphasize it, right? Telling time and at a time are two different things, right? A las is at the time, and I'll put in an extra slide to emphasize that. And it is a time is something else. So we're going to take a look at a video to reinforce that. So, and you'll get the link for this if you want to play it a little bit more. It's going to kind of review the basics and then give some different combinations here. ¿Dónde está? ¿Dónde está? Bien, sonido. I got to click a few more buttons to make sure that you can hear it. Y aquí está. Here it is.
Hola. In this video lesson, we're going to continue with telling time. ¿Qué hora es, if you remember, means what time is it? Let's review the basic hours. Es la una. Son las dos. Son las tres. Son las cuatro. Son las cinco. Son las seis. Son las siete. Son las 8, son las 9, son las 10, son las 11, son las 12.
And remember to say at a time instead of it is a time. We just get rid of the son and we put in the word a, which is going to represent the idea of at. A las 12, a las 11, a las 10, a las 9, a las 8, a las 7. Right? And you're probably next week going to use that a las with an hour, a time structure. Yeah? Okay.
And if I add minutes, we say it in hours normal and then add the number. This would be son las 2:22. Son las 5:40. Son las 10:01.
Right? And the second number, the 10, tells the hour. And the uno just tells the number of minutes, right? So the E is the and word, and the second number tells us how many minutes.
And we also have two additional words for 15 minutes and 30 minutes. If you remember, cuarto means quarter or fourth. So this would be son las 8:15 or son las 8:15.
So both of those are equivalent. They mean the same thing. People will say what they feel like. So you just have to be prepared for a curveball on that because you don't know which way people are going to express it ahead of time. They'll just say what they feel like.
Son las 11:15 or son las 11:15. If you remember, media means half, but you might remember middle. That could help you too. Es la 1:30 or es la 1:30.
And again, if you want to say at 1:30, we get rid of the little verb part, which is the word es, and we just insert the little word a, at, a. Okay. I know that a means to a place, but a is also used to say at in some instances, and this is one of them, telling time. A la 1:30, a la 1:30, at 1:30. Both of those are equivalent. Okay? Vale.
Son las 7:30 o son las 7:30. Remember that media is only for exactly 30 with time. Okay, so 30 on the dot. You can't say for this, son las 7:31.
You can't say this. Media's got to be on the dot, folks. Yeah, media. And I guarantee you, he said this because some 15-year-old said, hey, can't I say this? And he's like, no, don't do that. Will they understand you? Yes. But will they think it's weird? Yeah, they'll think that's really weird. So, yeah, it can't be son las 7:31. That even hurts my brain to look at that. But, yeah. Son las 7:31, y 31 and 31. Okay. Yeah, that one is okay.
Well, I guess you could, but it would sound weird. Try some of these.
Oh, let's try some of these. Oh, and these are already the bigger number ones. Let's try it as digital first. So look at the 40, look at the 55, look at the 35 first, and then we'll do the other way of saying these next. ¿Cómo se dice 7:40?
Come on.
60:40.
7:40.
Son las 7
40.
y
40.
40. Bien, son las 7:40. Let's look at the next one. Son las
3
55.
y 55. Son las 3:55.
Menos.
Let's look at 12:35.
Son las
Son las 12
Son las 12
y
y
35.
y 35. Son las 12:35. Okay, we could use the backwards idea also. We could use the next hour coming up to say these same things and still be correct. And honestly, I don't remember if he does both these methods on here. Whoa, vamos a ver, we will see. What if we expressed 7:40 as the next hour coming up? What if we expressed it as 20 till 8?
Son las 8 menos 20.
Sí, son las 8 menos 20. Menos 20. If you look at an analog clock, it is a little easier to do that. If you look at a digital clock, it is harder to express that idea, yeah? If you got the old-fashioned hands on the clock instead of digital, yeah. Son las 8 menos 20. All right, let's look at 3:55. That might be mentally easier for you to figure out. If we go to the next hour minus how many minutes, that would be expressed a different way. Right, we're going to need a cinco at the end. And what do we need in the front part? Son las
4.
cuatro
Menos
our minus word, menos
55.
cinco. Son las 4 menos 5. And mentally, you know what? Even if you're not looking at a digital clock, that's the one that's a little bit easier to figure out. Bien. And that next one, that is some mental gymnastics. We're looking at the next hour. If we express it as the next hour, it'll be es la
Una.
Es la una menos
25.
25. This requires a little more mental gymnastics if you haven't got an analog clock. Yeah. Bien. Okay, vale. Let's let it roll. See if it gives both.
Son las 7:40. Son las 3:55. Son las 12:35. Now, if you don't mind a little bit of math, there's another way we can do this when the numbers are higher up.
And here's what he's going to explain. And when he says when the numbers are higher up, remember, this is anything that's past 5:30, 6:30, 8:30, anything past the 30-minute, anything between the 30 and the 60-minute, right? The second half of the 60-minute hour cycle. And this is the math part.
Similar to English.
He expresses it a little
for
different way.
7:40, or son las 7:40. If you think about it, it's really just 8 o'clock minus 20 minutes. So we could also say, using menos for minus, son las 8 menos 20. Now, if I said son las 7:40 or son las 8 menos 20, it's the same thing. It's just different ways of saying it. The formula then is take the hour that it is and add 1, and then take the number of minutes in an hour, 60, minus whatever many minutes you have in the time. But if you don't have 1 to the hour, for example, if you were to say this, son las 10 menos 15, you just said it was 10 o'clock minus 15, which would be 9:45 and not 10:45. So make sure you're telling an hour ahead. So let's try a couple practice. Let's figure out how to say in Spanish what these are saying. Make sure to pause the video if you need more time while figuring out the answer. If it has 2 ways, please try both. ¿Qué hora es?
I don't have an ideal place to put my little prop here. ¿Qué hora es?
9:05. A las 1:05.
Es la 1:05. Es la 1:05. If you want to say at 1:05, it would be a la 1:05. See? So to tell the time, es la 1:05. To say at a time, a la 1:05. A la 1:05.
Es la 1:05.
And the at is again just getting rid of the verb part, which is the word es, right? And putting in the word a instead. A la 1:05.
¿Qué hora es?
Uy, ay. Okay, let's do the digital easy one first.
Las
4:38.
Sí, son las 4:38. Wow, I'd have to do mental gymnastics math to do the rest of it.
Son las 4:38. Or son las 5 menos 22.
Son las 5 menos 22. If I look at an analog clock, that's easier for me to figure out. Okay, that's just the way my brain works, but there we go. But there you see there are two ways to express it. Cuatro is the hour you're on right now with the digital time, right? But
Right.
the hour coming up, right? Because we're getting closer to 5 than we are to the 4 hour. That's why that happens. When we're getting closer to the 5 o'clock hour, we bump up that hour time, so las 5, and then we put in a menos because we're subtracting minutes, right? Menos 22, all right? And I think most people, yeah, that would be a tough one unless they're looking at an analog clock. Okay.
¿Qué hora es?
¿Qué hora es?
45.
Son las
Son las
10.
Son las 10
Las 10.
y
45.
Y 45, 45, and 45 is a special one because we often mark the quarter hour times. So instead of using 45, we might bump up to the next hour, which is
11.
son las 11
Son las 11 menos
menos
15.
menos 15, or maybe even menos
Cuarto.
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 Right. There are 3 ways you may. Uy, tres. Cuéntenlos, count them, ¿sí? 3 maneras de decir 10:40. Son las 10:45, or bumping up the next hour could be son las 11 menos 15, son las 11 menos cuarto. You may hear it 3 different ways because they feel like it, but we do that in English too, yeah? 15 minutes to 11, quarter till 11. We do the same thing. Okay, they will too.
Son las 10:45 o son las 11 menos 15. And because 15 and cuarto are basically the same for time, you could also say son las 11 menos cuarto. ¿Qué hora es?
¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? Let's look at the digital one first.
¿Qué hora?
Digital.
Y
Son las
cuarto.
2.
50.
Son las
2:50.
y 50, sí. Son las 2:50, son las 2:50, son las 2:50. If we are bumping it up to the next hour,
Son las 3.
if we want to say 10 till 3, son las
3.
3 menos
Menos
10.
10. Sí, exacto.
Son las
Exacto.
2:50 o son las 3 menos 10. ¿Qué hora es?
Ooh, guy. Oh, he's got a real
Uy.
oddball one here.
A las 5,
Ah,
42.
y 42. Son las 5:42. And wow, he's got AM.
Son las 5:42 de la mañana.
And what's the de la mañana part?
In the morning.
In the morning, yeah. De la
AM.
mañana. PM, sí. He's got another video where he says that people don't say AM or PM, but actually that is a little bit erroneous depending on who you're talking to and where they're from. There are some people who do an AM, PM, but it's much more common. It is much more common to use a de la mañana because 5 may often, that 5 o'clock hour often prompts AM or PM, right? Son las 5:42 de la mañana. De la mañana says in the morning. What about if you want to say in the afternoon? De la
Tarde.
Tarde, de la tarde, just like we say buenos días, good morning, and buenas tardes for the afternoon, it's de la mañana or de la tarde. Same tarde they use in buenas tardes. Same word, except it's tarde. See? If you want to say at night, it's got to be
Buenas
not de la
noches.
mañana, de la tarde, but de la
Noche.
noche, de la noche, de la noche. And de la noche will only be things that are truly night times, like sun has set, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11. Yeah, hours like that.
O son las 6 menos 18 de la mañana. ¿Qué hora es?
Ah, sí, ¿qué hora es? PM, we're going to add in a PM idea. ¿Cómo se dice? 7:25.
Son las 7:25.
Son las 7:25. Son las 7:25. And we're going to add an, so that we know you don't, yeah, de la
Noche.
Tarde.
de la noche, sí.
Son las 7:25 de la noche.
De la noche.
¿Qué hora es?
Ah, PM.
Son las 3. Oh,
Y,
son las 4 menos 1.
Sí.
yeah, sí, son las
Son las
4
cuatro
menos.
menos uno.
Yeah, you know what? I would go the next hour because, come on,
Yeah.
it's almost 4, right?
That's true.
And then you say de la tarde. Would you say de la tarde?
Yeah, I would never say 7:59. You know what? I bet my husband would because he thinks more digitally than I do. But I'd be like, it's almost 4. Son las 4 menos.
Son las
Las
3:59 de la tarde. O son las 4 menos 1 de la tarde.
But notice the PM idea is usually expressed as de la tarde, de la tarde.
If you were able to figure out some or all of them,
Okay, I am going to give you a second video he has because I believe in the other video, although we don't need it for today, I believe he does. Does he talk about de la madrugada? No sé exactamente. Don't know exactly, but he's got a little bit of additional information that'll be kind of helpful in the other video as well. But this was useful because it gave us some things to practice with, yeah? And it shows you that idea of subtracting the hour. So we're going to fold that into some ideas to talking about time. Okay, and you're going to use that next week to talk about what time you do certain things, what time you do certain things. And I'm going to give you a video to watch because it's going to use a lot of, it's going to give you a lot of verb ideas in kind of a little story sort of format that will talk about a list of things. Now, I don't want you, the one thing I do want you to listen to this video in its entirety. We're going to walk through a part of it, and then I'm going to model some examples of what you may want to do next week.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to sort of do some listening comprehension. This will be a little faster than comfortable for some of you. No big deal. No pasa nada, no big deal for others of you. So just keep in mind when you listen to a video like this, I'm going to show you what you should do is click on the CC button and it will bring up, I think it's automatically going to bring up Spanish, but just in case it doesn't, click on the gear button and hit subtitles and make sure it's on Spanish. Yeah, see, bien. Some of you may want to slow it down, which is again that gear looking button and playback speed. if you're listening to this by yourself at home this week,
75.
you may want 75. I'm not going to, but do know, don't set it any lower than that, or it will
Yeah.
totally sound like molasses pouring out of a bottle. You'll be waiting forever. And it actually starts to distort the way the words sound if you put it too slow. Okay, so I'm going to set it on normal because I'm going to do a little bit of a walkthrough, okay, on the first segment of this. She's going to give you 50 verbs you may use. And I don't want you to think you're going to memorize 50 verbs. Good Lord. No, but we're going to walk through some of them. I'm going to point out some things she's going to use that are maybe a little out of the ordinary, and what I want you to take away from that video is maybe somewhere in a notepad or on your computer, you may want to type in some general verbs because she will put the verb in general on the screen. Do you have to learn all 50? No, but you may want to make a note of several of those 50. And I want you to bring back from this video, pull out some verbs she uses to talk about what you do during your day and at what time you do it. I want you to pick out between 5 to 8 activities that you do in your day. Okay, it can be any that she uses throughout. Okay, we're just going to preview the first bit of it. Pick out 5 to 8 of those, depending on how confident you feel, but try for 5 and talk about what time you do that. All right, so the thing that she does not do in this video that I do want you to do is incorporate what time you do that in your day. Okay, you're going to incorporate a time element that she does not do. It really would help if I put her on the screen. Bien. Okay, aquí. Here she is.
Cuando suena. Ay,
These are kind of outtakes.
Hoy que mi familia no está en casa, voy a aprovechar para enseñarte mi rutina diaria.
Bien. Now that my family is not in the house, voy a aprovechar. I'm going to take advantage. Take advantage of the fact that I got an empty house, yeah? To teach you my routine. Para enseñarte, to teach you. Para enseñarte, and what is she going to teach you? Mi rutina diaria, my daily routine, okay? Do you have to come away from this memorizing 50 verbs? No. If you're at that level where you feel that you can do that, go for it, by all means. But you may not, you don't have to make a list of 50 verbs, but pick out 5 things you actually do.
¿Y para qué? Pues para que aprendas más de 50 verbos en español con los que hablar de todas esas cosas que haces cada día.
To learn. The purpose of this, she's explaining, is to learn 50 different things that people often do during their daytime, a normal, everyday day. Para tu rutina diaria. So here at the bottom, you see places that people might be in the morning time. Dormitorio. That's a word for bedroom. There are a bunch of different words for bedroom in Spanish, right? Habitación is another word for bedroom. Just plain old cuarto can be used for bedroom, right? Then cocina, kitchen, baño, bathroom, oficina, office, salón, living room. So places you might be in the morning hours.
Apago el despertador cuando suena a las 7 de la
Bien. And she uses her de la mañana. Apago el despertador. Despertador is waker-upper. Waker-upper is their word for what?
Alarm clock.
Alarm clock. The apago part is the verb. And remember, the verb has to go into a form to tell who's doing it. And because there's an O there, it's not a masculine because verbs aren't masculine and feminine. That O at the end tells that it's I who is doing the action. Yo is doing the action. Apago. Apagar, and you see, she starts off with it's an AR verb, right? Apago el despertador. I turn off the alarm clock. See? They don't use the word alarm clock. It's a waker-upper thing. Despertador. Apago el despertador cuando suena, when it rings, and you can cut that part out if you want to. Cuando suena just gives more information. When it goes off. Sonar means to sound. So they don't use go off. I'm pointing out some odd things. Well, odd structurally, not odd in Spanish. We use the word go off. Do you say the alarm sounds?
No.
No.
Don't. But we often say the alarm goes off. Right? We say goes off. In Spanish, they don't say goes off. They say it sounds. It makes a sound. And that's that word suena. Suena is the alarm, the clock, doing an action. Beep, 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 beep. That's suena. That's the action of suena. And I'm not going beep, 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 beep. The alarm clock, despertador, is doing the beep, beep, beep. And that's why it's suena. It's doing the going off, sounding off. And then we tell you when. A las 7 de la mañana, at 7 a.m.
De la mañana. Apago el despertador cuando suena a las 7 de la mañana.
And you can shorten that communication, if that's too much, by cutting out the cuando suena. You can cut out the cuando suena and still get the core of the most important idea with the other words. Apago el despertador a las 7 de la mañana. Those are the chunks. Apago, what I'm doing. El despertador, what I'm shutting off. A las 7 de la mañana. A las 7 at 7 de la mañana. A.m. See? Those are the chunks you should think in. Apago el despertador, what I'm doing. A las 7, when, de la mañana, more information about when. See? Bien? Okay.
Este es el despertador de mi hijo, porque yo no...
Este. And here's a mini lesson. Este, E-S-T-E, see that word in the subtitles? Este means this one. And if she says this thing, if she says this is, and she's referring to, I know he looks funny, it's a Mario thing, but that's a clock. This is here's the word for this is. Not this clock, but this is. That's the word este. Este es el despertador de mi hijo. This is my kid's alarm clock.
Normalmente uso mi móvil. Tú también.
Normalmente uso mi móvil. She's from Spain, so she uses móvil. We would use celular. Celular. Yo normalmente, yo normalmente uso. And here's another verb, uso, I use. Uso mi móvil or mi celular. Okay? So many people use this as their alarm clock. That's what she's talking about. Normalmente uso mi móvil.
¿También? Entonces, me estiro.
Me estiro. I do this. Me estiro por la mañana.
Stretch.
I stretch. And estirarse is the verb. Estirar means to stretch. But if I'm stretching, not my sweater because it shrunk, or not a rubber band to make it longer, but I'm stretching my limbs, That's why we've got the little word me in front of there. It means I'm doing something to my own body, which is what we call a reflexive verb, which normally I could just use estiro by itself. But because this is a special type of verb, meaning I'm doing it to a limb of my body, then it's got to have the word me in front of it. Me estiro por la mañana. And why do you know you need that me? Because she's got it set up as a reflexive verb. The little word se at the end means I'm doing it to my body. Some verbs do that in Spanish, some don't. Stretch your body, brush your teeth, comb your hair, put on makeup. Those are things you do on your body. And they will use the little special me in front of that yo verb, me estiro, okay? So if you don't want to take that extra step, don't use this verb. But if you want to talk about stretching before you go out on that walk, you may want to use that. If you want to talk about stretching before you get on that bike to do a hard ride, you may want to use that. Okay. You can see I'm pointing out some things that are like, apagar is an easy verb to use. Estirarse is a little harder verb to use. You may choose to skip that one. Así es.
Por la mañana me estiro y salgo de la cama con mucha energía.
Salgo de la cama con mucha energía. Con is with. Con mucha energía. With a lot of energy. And salir is a little odd only for yo. Where does that G come from? Salir is one of those odd verbs. The o form does say it's yo doing the action, but salir is an odd verb only for yo. Only the yo form gets that G. Salgo, salgo, right? They don't say salo. You would think they say salo, but the yo form is salgo. Just accept that one gets a G. Okay.
Así que elijo la ropa que voy a ponerme.
I choose the clothing I'm going to put on. Elijo la ropa que voy a ponerme.
Elijo la ropa que voy a ponerme. Pero todavía tengo sueño, así que bostezo. Bostezo mientras elijo la ropa. Y
bostezo, yawn.
Como todavía tengo sueño, me vuelvo a la cama. Me
vuelvo. I plop my body back in bed. Me vuelvo a la cama. Me vuelvo. I go back to. Me vuelvo a la cama.
A la cama. Me meto en la cama.
Me meto, I put myself back in. I dive back in. Me meto. Meter is to put something inside of something else. If I'm putting myself back in between the sheets, me meto en la cama. Me meto en la cama.
Y comienzo a roncar inmediatamente.
You may want to skip that verb for next week.
Oh no, me he quedado dormida y voy tarde. Me he quedado dormida y...
Me he quedado dormido. That is a hard one to use. Me quedo, and she used it in the past. Me quedo dormido. I'm oversleeping. Ay, me quedo dormido. Okay. You don't have to know how to use past, so you may want to skip this one for next week, but we're going to just show that this is like probably one of the harder ones you're going to want to skip. Pegarse las sábanas really means literally, I stick to my sheets. I stick like glue to my sheets. Pegar has a couple of meanings, but pegarse is, this is a very colloquial thing. Skip that one for using it yourself, but it's kind of fun to see.
Marilyn, I think the video stopped playing.
Oh, did it stick? Okay,
yeah,
hang on.
It's stuck on her.
Gracias. Thank you.
Oversleeping. Yep.
I think that's because I moved my little label thing that they pull up. Gracias. Thank you.
Yeah, we just didn't see the last verb.
Okay. Mejor. Better? ¿Sí?
Sí.
Bien. And okay, let me know if it doesn't go. I need to move it out of the way a little bit. There's no great place to put that because she's going to put verbs at the top. We'll move that there. Okay.
Mañana siempre me entra hambre.
Ah,
Por la mañana siempre me entra hambre. Así que vamos a preparar el desayuno. ¿Te está gustando esta lección? ¿Te gustaría tener una clase de español privada solo conmigo?
and this is
Pues ahora
self-promotion,
tienes la
which is
oportunidad
okay, but
de hacerlo. En el enlace de la descripción encontrarás toda la información. Nos vemos muy pronto.
telling where to
Y
find her
ahora
link.
continuamos con la cocina. Lo primero que hago en la cocina por la
And
mañana
now notice she's got cocina, kitchen stuff highlighted.
Kitchen.
So she's talking about stuff you do in the kitchen, la cocina.
es hacer café.
Hacer
Primero
café.
hago café.
Hago café. Hago café. I make coffee. And you'll notice hacer means to make. It also means to do. And hacer, like salir went into salgo with a go for yo. Hacer, only for yo, does this G thing too. Okay, a few verbs in Spanish do that. And it is irregular only for yo that it plugs in this G that comes from out of nowhere because hacer sure doesn't have a G, right? But primero hago café. First, I make coffee. Primero hago café. So, if you choose to talk about making tea, making coffee, making a smoothie, yeah, anything like that, you may choose to talk about this next week as one of your 5 items. But I want you to incorporate at what time. So I want you to fold in at what time when you come back next week. Hago el café. Yo personalmente hago el café. Hago el café a las 6 de la mañana. A las 6 de la mañana. Hago café a las 6 de la mañana. ¿Bien? Ok.
Para hacer café es muy importante enchufar la cafetera. Enchufo
enchufar.
la cafetera.
Enchufar, to plug
Después
in.
necesito llenar el depósito de la cafetera con agua. Lleno el depósito.
Llenar, to fill. If you fill a glass, you fill a cup, you fill your coffee maker, that's the verb llenar. Muy regular, really, really regular verb, llenar. It does what all AR verbs do. Lleno, llenas, llena, llenamos, llenan. Normal, normal. Muy regular.
De la cafetera con agua. La cafetera muele el café.
Wow. Wow.
Perdón por el ruido.
Sorry
Ahora
for the
toca
noise.
preparar la comida para el desayuno. Yo desayuno yogur con fruta. Así que primero pelo un plátano.
Pelo. I peel.
Pelo un plátano. La verdad es que esta semana no he ido al supermercado. Así que
This morning I
no
didn't go to
tengo
the supermarket.
mucho yogur. Por eso rebaño con la cuchara el yogur. Rebaño con la cuchara el yogur.
Maybe isn't one of the most common verbs you're going to want to use, but she gives you
En
50.
español, rebañar también significa esto. Pero no es de buena educación hacer esto en España.
It's not good manners to do that.
Mi familia prefiere desayunar tostadas. Así que tuesto 2 rebanadas de pan en el tostador.
Tuesto. And notice that o in tostar splits off into what we call a stem change. So if you want to say I toast, it is not tosto, it is tuesto. Tuesto. Okay, so for that particular verb, that's the particular thing it does. The O splits off, it goes into 2 vowels. Instead of tosto, it's tuesto. Tuesto 2 rebanadas. I toast, 2 slices. Rebanadas are slices de pan, of bread. ¿Ok? Bien.
El café ya está listo, así que necesito coger mi taza favorita, hecho café.
Ah, bien. Okay, here's what I wanted to get to. We got just enough time. Echar has many meanings, but I want you to notice this because this is very common. Echar also means to throw, like to toss. And if you want to say you pour in some stuff, or you add in some cream, or you throw in a little bit of salt or pepper, this is the verb they use for that all the time. Echar café. Echar café is meaning you pour it. You're not literally throwing it, but you're tossing a few drops in. Yeah. He hecho café. Little more common to say hecho azúcar en el café. I throw a little sugar in the coffee. Hecho un poco de crema. Hecho un poco de leche. I toss in a little milk or cream. See? Hecho.
Asegúrate de no confundir el verbo echar, hecho café, con el verbo hacer, con H. He hecho café.
And she's just putting out hacer and echar might, for some people, sound a little similar, right? Yeah, echar and hacer. And the he hecho, it makes it past. Forget about the past stuff there, right? Hago, I make.
El último paso para tener listo mi café es añadir la leche.
Now, instead, a lot of people might say hecha leche. Some people might say I toss in some milk, right? But añadir also means to add, and that's another verb people may use. Añadir, to add. So I just want you to watch the whole video. It is really important that you understand. Don't pressure yourself to, I must learn 50 new verbs, 50. No. Yeah. But this is to give you some ideas of things you might talk about that you do on a daily basis. So I want you to watch that to get some ideas. You may want to note some verbs down that you may want to use next week, and come back and talk about next week what you do in a normal day. Pick 5 to 8 things. They can be anything off of that list, or they don't even have to be on that list, but something you do normally during the day in a usual routine, and at what time. So you're going to be adding in, yeah? You're going to be adding in the a las 8, at 8, a las 10, a las 2. I'm going to give you one extra time video that from the same guy that you listened to today, but it's a little bit additional because he's going to throw in a few extra vocabulary words, like the words for noon or the words for midnight, which are specific words. And if you have a question on those, you can come back next week and ask me about that ahead of time. ¿Sí? Bien. Vale. Muy bien. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there any kind of question? So, when you watch the video, don't pressure yourself to, I must understand every word she says and every chunk. You may want to say, hey, Marilyn, at time mark 5 minutes, like around the 5-minute mark, she uses this term, and I don't know what she's talking about. And we can review that before we start our exercise. So do make a note of the timestamp. If there's something that she says in there that's a real question mark, a real puzzle, and come back with a question on it, that's great. We'll review any questions you have on that video next week. But it's a good listening comprehension video. What you should go for is, first of all, making notes of maybe a few extra verbs, 5 or 6 that you may want to use to talk about your daily routine, and that you can follow the basic ideas of what she's expressing. Okay? Not to understand every single word or translate, God forbid, every single word but do come with questions you have about it. And you're going to fold in your own ideas to talk about what time during the day you do various things.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Bien, vale, sí.
Yeah.
And it can be, and keep it as simple as you like, or if you want to stretch and try something a little harder, stretch and try some a little bit harder. Y si cometes un error, no pasa nada. And if you make a mistake, no big deal.
Correct.
No pasa nada. No pasa nada. No big deal.
No big
Yeah.
deal.
We can't get better and try different things if we don't make mistakes. So, así es. So it is. Okay. Bien. Lógico? Logical? Lógico? Bien.
Yes.
Okay. Vale, perfecto. Algo fácil, something easy. Talk about your day and fold in a time element. You'll get one extra time video that will give you a little bit extra vocabulary. It's not hard. It's a short video. And then you've got the longer one to listen to a daily routine. ¿Todo bien?
Todo bien.
Todo bien.
Todo bien. Perfecto, perfecto.
Adiós.
Espero que ustedes tengan muy buen día. I hope you all have a really good day. ¿Sí?
Gracias.
Gracias.
Adiós.
De nada. Fue un placer. Fue un placer.
Muchachos.
Adiós.
Bien,
Adiós.
nos vemos.